communication and information. So that's one thing that's unusual about UNESCO, the scope of our mandate. Another thing that's unusual about UNESCO among UN agencies is the very close relationships we have with our 195 member states. Through the permanent delegations that live with us in Paris, through our national commissions. Each country has a national commission. The most active worldwide is widely acknowledged to be Korea, by the way. And we have also intergovernmental bodies which manage our large-scale scientific programs. And our overall mandate, we were founded right at the end of World War II, is to build peace in the minds of men through education, science, and cultural collaboration. In the natural science sector, which is the one that I head, we have several categories of activity that we have prioritized as being particularly appropriate for UNESCO. One is to focus on scientific collaborations that intrinsically require large-scale collaborations. In other words, projects that can't be conducted by any one nation alone. And I would cite here our work in oceans, in freshwater systems, in biodiversity, etc. I'll talk about this a little bit more later. Our second main function is to assist our member states in building capacity to meet their own goals for strengthening science, technology, and innovation ecosystems in service to society. And lastly, we take very seriously our mandate to focus on areas in which science can make a difference for peace. And I'll cite two examples here. One is our work on transboundary aquifers. As is obvious, I'm sure, to many in the room, water has the potential to be a crisis area, a source of conflict throughout the world, and by having scientifically based collaborations and assessments of the world's water resources and collective processes to look for solutions, we can mitigate the dangers of water-based conflicts. The other one is an acronym. SESAME stands for a project in the Middle East in which we bring together scientists from Israel, Pakistan, Palestine, Iran, Cyprus, Egypt, Jordan, and many others to work on designing and building a new synchrotron for a variety of applications. So our concept of STI and development is quite broad and very people-focused at UNESCO. We really look at the ethics, the empowerment of local communities, to have a culture of science which is focusing on local knowledge and innovation capacities, but addressing problems that we collectively face around the world. The strengths that we bring to bear at UNESCO, well, first of all, I mentioned some of the strong existing efforts that we have. I won't repeat them here. But we also have been very active over decades in building a network of UNESCO-related institutions. Some of them you may be familiar with, including the Abdus Salam International Center for Theoretical Physics in Trieste, concentrating on physics in the developing world, the IHE, which is the world's largest freshwater postgraduate program, and about 22 so-called Category 2 centers around the world that work on topics related to UNESCO's broader agenda. In addition to our headquarters in Paris, we've got 53 offices around the world, and the main science offices are in the locations listed there. We have a very active program of UNESCO university chairs, about 200 in the world with a science focus. And in general, what we're able to do, because we're regarded quite rightly as a politically neutral space, we're able to bring together international networks of scientists to discuss topics which at sometimes can be quite contentious. Our current strategic plan for the next 2 biennia clusters the work of UNESCO into 2 main categories. I'm going to only go through this very quickly. The first has to do with strengthening STI ecosystems. And within that, there are 3 pillars. One is the policy. Being an intergovernmental body, policy is a really good arena for us to work on. And so we work not only on helping nations strengthen their policy at national level, but on building regional and global policy efforts. The second one has perhaps the most to do with the topic of this conference, is building capacity in basic sciences and engineering through institutional capacity building with a focus on higher education research and curricular innovation, but also programs directly focusing on building student leadership and on faculty development. Lastly, we have an effort focusing on mobilization of societal participation in science, technology, and innovation, including popular awareness, working on local and indigenous science knowledge systems, and a very strong focus on small island developing states and their particular vulnerabilities. The second main umbrella of activities have to do with managing natural resources and looking at disasters. So there's the oceans, the freshwater systems, ecological and earth sciences covering biodiversity and geosciences, and a very strong effort in natural disaster risk reduction and mitigation. In all of these topics, UNESCO has two overarching priorities. Geographically, we have a priority on Africa, and gender equity is our second major priority. Recently, with the new leadership at UNESCO, we've also moved to several new cross-cutting themes, which I'll tell you very briefly about. A new UNESCO engineering initiative, strengthening our work in natural disasters, biodiversity and science education. We also have very strong efforts in climate change, and as I mentioned, in small island developing states. So I wanted to give you a picture of what some of these large-scale intergovernmental science programs look like, so we can think together later about how we can collaborate yet more effectively in them. This is a diagram of the work of the International Hydrological Program, which has 120 member states, and hydrologists around the world are brought together to think about what should be the priorities for the international freshwater community. One of the aspects of their work is, in addition to doing basic work in understanding the world's water resources, they do a lot of work on intersection with policy, as well as a lot of work on water education worldwide at a variety of levels. A second very exciting initiative is the Man in the Biosphere program, which has, the numbers are obsolete there, it's 580 biosphere reserves in 120 countries. And these are really very exciting sites to look at as living labs for sustainable development, because in addition to preserving biodiversity, local communities live there. And in addition to a core zone, there will be a buffer zone where economic activity is allowed and encouraged, such as mining, tourism, agriculture, and working together to really utilize this set of biosphere reserves yet more effectively as a key goal of our science efforts. As I mentioned, we do a great deal of work on policy, and some recent publications are mentioned. These are the countries that we have been working with or are continuing to work with in developing national science, technology, and innovation policies. The geoparks, like the Man in the Biosphere reserves, are a really interesting sort of bottoms-up network by the international geological community to designate sites for geological research, education, community economic development. In the area of oceans, we house the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, which brings together a great deal of the data worldwide, which enables the international scientific community to address such issues as climate change and resulting impacts on the ocean. Natural disaster, I mentioned that before, but I think very briefly, I'll just mention, because of its connection to the network of centers, the networks of networks that I mentioned, the recent very intensive effort that we've had in the Pakistan flood experience, where UNESCO, not only through headquarters, but at our field offices, but also through our network of water-related research centers, were able to bring together an international community to, together with Pakistani authorities, build a short and a medium, long-term plan to deal with this. And among the countries that we were able to mobilize working on the science of the flood were Pakistan, Korea, China, Japan, Nigeria, and Iran. As I mentioned, gender equity is a huge priority for UNESCO. One of our more well-known activities is a marvelous partnership that we have for L'Oreal for Women in Science, which awards 5 prizes per year to outstanding senior level women. So far, 2 women have gone on to receive the Nobel Prize. But we also have a focus on promoting the career development of younger UNESCO L'Oreal Fellows. And 2011 has been a special year for us with the International Year of Chemistry and the 100th anniversary of Marie Curie's first Nobel Prize to dedicate some new awards in the name of Marie Curie. So the leadership capacity of women in science